Asterisk, asterisk. She collapsed clutching her newborn. No one helped until a mysterious millionaire lifted her into. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the story. In the quiet of a cold, rainy evening in downtown New York, the streets seemed to whisper with the bustle of the city, yet there was an eerie emptiness around the train station. A small woman, struggling with exhaustion, clutched a newborn baby in her arms as she stumbled across the platform. Her heart raced, desperate for help, yet no one stopped. She could feel the weight of her world crashing down with every step. Her name was Emily. Barely 22, she had been through more than anyone her age should have. Her life had turned into a blur of hospital bills, sleepless nights, and an uncertain future after she had given birth to her son just a few days ago. The harsh reality of being a single mother had set in. She was exhausted, barely able to carry herself, let alone her newborn, but she couldn't give up. As she staggered down the platform, trying to reach the exit, her legs gave way. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the cold concrete, clutching her baby tightly to her chest. A gasp escaped her lips as she felt herself losing consciousness. But the weight of her child kept her grounded. She had tried asking for help, but the bustling crowd ignored her, each person too focused on their own lives to notice her suffering. In those final moments of consciousness, a flicker of hope burned within her heart. She had no idea who could help, but someone had to. Just then, a figure approached, cutting through the rain like a shadow. A tall, well-dressed man with dark hair and a concerned expression knelt down beside her. His gaze flickered to her baby, then back to her face. Without hesitation, he reached out, lifting her gently from the ground, as if she weighed nothing. She could barely comprehend what was happening as his strong arms supported her. His voice was calm and soothing as he spoke. "You're going to be okay," he reassured her softly. The man helped her to her feet and looked around, noticing the crowd's indifference. He shook his head, then turned back to Emily, his expression unreadable. The sound of his voice, so reassuring and kind, made Emily feel for the first time in hours that there might be hope. She had no idea who he was or why he stopped, but she couldn't help but feel a strange comfort in his presence. "Let's get you out of here," he said. As he guided her away from the cold platform, the world seemed to fade around them. This mysterious man, a stranger to her, had just become her only hope. Little did she know, this encounter would change both of their lives forever. After the mysterious man had helped Emily to her feet, she still felt lightheaded, barely able to keep her eyes open. Her thoughts were jumbled, but one thing was clear: she could hardly believe the kindness of the stranger who had lifted her from the cold ground. The city's noise seemed to fade into the background as he led her away from the platform and towards a waiting car parked under a street lamp, the headlights cutting through the misty rain. "It's okay," he said, his voice steady. "We're getting you somewhere safe." She nodded weakly, feeling her baby stir in her arms. The man opened the car door, guiding her into the back seat before climbing in beside her. The warmth of the car contrasted sharply with the chill of the night, and Emily felt the weight of her exhaustion creeping in. As the car began to move, she closed her eyes, trying to gather the strength to speak. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. The man glanced at her briefly, his jaw tight, as if he was debating how much to reveal. "My name is William. I saw you collapse, and I couldn't just walk away," he said simply, his gaze returning to the rain-drenched streets ahead. Emily's eyes flickered to him in the dim light, confused by his calm demeanor. She expected someone like him, a man who clearly had wealth and influence, to be more distant, more indifferent. Yet, there was an unspoken sincerity in his words. Her thoughts were interrupted as the car pulled into a quiet, gated neighborhood. The lights from the street lamps reflected off the wet pavement, casting a soft glow on the elegant homes. William pulled the car up to a large, modern house at the end of the street. It was impressive, with tall windows and a perfectly manicured lawn. It felt like a world away from the cold, crowded streets of the city where Emily had just fallen. The man turned to her, offering a small, reassuring smile. "This is where you can rest," he said. "You'll be safe here." Emily hesitated. The idea of accepting help from a stranger, especially someone like him, felt strange and foreign. But she had no other choice. She had nowhere else to go. Her apartment had been barely affordable, and now with the baby, she was barely scraping by. She had no family to turn to, no one who could help. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. William opened the car door and helped her out, guiding her up the steps to the front door. Once inside, the warmth enveloped her, and she felt herself relaxing for the first time in what seemed like forever. William led her to a guest room that was as spacious as it was elegantly furnished, a stark contrast to the small, dimly lit apartment she'd been living in. "I'll make sure you have everything you need," he said as he left the room, his voice soft. Emily stood in the center of the room, feeling a strange mix of relief and unease. She glanced at the baby in her arms, who had finally quieted down and drifted into a peaceful sleep. As she placed him gently into the crib beside the bed, she couldn't help but wonder about the man who had just come into her life. He was different from anyone she had ever met, kind, yet distant, wealthy, yet generous. What did he want from her? Why had he helped her? She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to his actions. Something deeper than simple kindness. Was it a coincidence that he had been there at that moment, at that very spot on the train platform? Or was it fate? Emily didn't know, but she was certain of one thing: her life had just changed in ways she couldn't yet understand. She lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling as her thoughts raced. The mystery of William was one she would need to solve, but for now, all she could do was rest. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt the faintest spark of hope, and that was enough for tonight. The next morning, Emily woke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the large windows of the guest room. The room, as quiet and pristine as it was, felt like a dream. She couldn't quite shake the feeling of disbelief. She had spent so many nights lying awake, wondering how she would survive, where she would find the strength to keep going. Now, she was in this lavish house, a guest in the home of a man she had only met the night before. William's kindness had given her a reprieve, but it also left her with more questions than answers. She glanced at her baby, still asleep in the crib beside her. The peaceful sight of him gave her some comfort, but her thoughts remained scattered. After everything that had happened, could she trust William? Why had he helped her? What did he expect in return? She sat up slowly, feeling the weight of the night's events settling on her chest. Her legs were sore from the exhaustion, but she pushed through it. She needed to get up, to start her day. She had no idea what would come next, but she knew she couldn't afford to waste time thinking about the past. The future had to come first. As she moved quietly through the room, she noticed a set of clothes, neatly folded on a chair. A gift from William, no doubt. A fresh start, a chance to breathe, and maybe, just maybe, a chance for a new life. The thought of it brought a small sense of hope. She dressed quickly, feeling more herself as she slipped into the simple, comfortable clothes. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped out of the room. She found William downstairs, in the spacious living room, looking over a set of papers. He glanced up when he heard her approach. His expression softened as he noticed her. "Good morning, Emily," he said, his voice as calm as ever. "How did you sleep?" Emily hesitated before answering. She didn't know how to explain the storm of thoughts that had kept her awake. Instead, she gave a small nod. "It was better, thank you." William's gaze held hers for a moment, and there was a quiet understanding in his eyes. "I'm glad," he said simply. "You're welcome to stay here as long as you need. I'm sure it's not easy, being in a new place, but you don't have to worry about anything here." Emily was taken aback. She had expected some sort of catch, some hidden agenda behind his offer, but his words were sincere. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. "Thank you," she said again, her voice thick with emotion. She swallowed hard, trying to keep herself from breaking down in front of him. "I don't know how to repay you." William set the papers aside and stood up. He walked over to where she was standing, his presence steady and reassuring. "You don't need to repay me," he said softly. "I helped because it was the right thing to do. Everyone deserves kindness, especially in moments of hardship. But, if you want to repay me, there's something you can do. You can take care of yourself, focus on your son, and try to build a better life. That's all I ask." Emily blinked, taken aback by the simplicity of his request. She had expected something more complicated, something that would require her to give something in return. But William's words felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She could focus on what mattered most, her son, and that was enough. "I'll try," she said softly. William smiled, his eyes warm. "That's all anyone can do." He motioned for her to sit, and she complied, feeling the need to take a moment. He sat down across from her, his expression serious. "I know you've been through a lot, Emily," he said quietly. "I'm not asking you to open up right away, but if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Emily looked at him, unsure of what to say. She didn't know this man, but somehow, his offer of support felt genuine. It was more than just an act of charity, it felt like he truly cared. She nodded slowly, unsure of how to express the gratitude she felt. "Thank you," she said again, her voice soft but sincere. As they sat together, a comfortable silence fell between them. Emily felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. She was still uncertain about what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. The world didn't seem so overwhelming anymore. She had someone who was willing to help, someone who had shown her that kindness still existed, even when it seemed like the world had forgotten. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As the days passed, Emily began to adjust to her new life in William's home. The initial uncertainty that had weighed heavily on her mind started to fade, replaced by a sense of calm she hadn't felt in years. She spent her days caring for her newborn son, Noah, and getting accustomed to the new environment. William had made sure she had everything she needed, from baby supplies to food and clothes, but it was more than that. He had offered her a space to breathe, a chance to gather her thoughts and regain her strength. Emily couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude toward him. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to William's kindness than he was letting on. Every time they spoke, she found herself growing more and more curious about him. Yet she hesitated to ask too many questions. William remained as enigmatic as ever, always kind but never offering much about himself. One evening, a week after she had moved in, William invited her to join him for dinner in the large dining room. It was the first time she had sat at the table with him, and although it was a small gesture, it felt like a significant step. They sat across from each other, the soft light from the chandelier casting a warm glow over the room. As they ate, Emily couldn't help but notice the contrast between them. Her, a woman with no resources, struggling to make ends meet, and him, someone with wealth and influence, someone who could provide her with everything she needed. It made her wonder why he had chosen to help her, someone he barely knew. The question lingered in her mind, but she wasn't sure how to bring it up. "Thank you for everything," Emily said quietly, breaking the silence. "You've really given me a chance to start over. I don't know how to repay you." William looked at her, his expression softening. "You don't have to repay me," he said, his voice calm. "I believe everyone deserves a chance, especially when life gets tough. I've seen too many people turn away when someone else needs help. I don't want to be that kind of person." Emily nodded slowly, grateful for his words. There was something in them that resonated with her, something genuine that she couldn't ignore. "I just don't understand," she began, her voice hesitant. "Why me? I mean, you don't even know me. I've been nothing but a stranger to you. Why go through all this trouble?" William paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. For a moment, he didn't speak, and Emily wondered if she had overstepped by asking. But then he set the fork down and met her gaze. "I know it might seem strange," he said, his tone thoughtful, "but sometimes you meet someone who reminds you of something you lost. I've been through a lot in my life, Emily. I've seen people suffer, and I've done my best to avoid getting too involved, thinking it was easier that way. But when I saw you, holding your son, barely able to stand, I couldn't just walk away." His voice was quieter now, as though he was choosing his words carefully. "I guess, in some ways, I saw a little bit of myself in you. I know what it's like to feel lost, to not know where to turn. I couldn't leave you out there like that." Emily sat back in her chair, processing his words. It made sense in a way. He had suffered too, maybe in different ways, but they both knew what it felt like to be on the edge, to feel like the world was closing in. "I don't know what to say," Emily whispered, overwhelmed by his honesty. William smiled faintly. "You don't need to say anything. Just know that you're not alone anymore. If you ever need help, I'm here." For a moment, Emily just stared at him, her heart heavy with emotion. She hadn't expected this kind of understanding from someone like him. She had always assumed that people with money, with power, couldn't possibly relate to someone like her, someone struggling to get by. But William's words proved her wrong. She was beginning to see him in a new light. He wasn't just a man with wealth and influence. He was a man who cared, a man who had been through his own struggles and understood the importance of kindness. After dinner, they sat in the living room for a while, talking about small things, about Noah's first smiles, the weather, and even some of the things they enjoyed doing in their spare time. It was a simple conversation, but for Emily, it was the first time in a long time that she felt like she belonged somewhere. As the evening came to a close, William stood up and stretched. "I'll leave you to rest," he said, his voice gentle. "You've had a long day. We can talk more tomorrow if you'd like." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that had been absent for so long. "Thank you," she said, her voice sincere, "for everything." As he walked away, she stood by the window, looking out at the peaceful night. For the first time since she arrived, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. There were still so many unknowns in her life, so many questions about her future, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. The days that followed were filled with a quiet rhythm. Emily found herself adjusting to life in William's home, and though she had been hesitant at first, she started to feel more comfortable. William had been nothing but kind, offering her space and time to figure out what she needed to do next. He had given her the opportunity to focus on her son, Noah, without the constant worry of where they would stay or how they would survive. In the mornings, William would go about his business, leaving her to spend time with Noah, and in the afternoons, he would often check in, making sure everything was okay. It wasn't long before Emily started to feel a sense of gratitude towards him, though there was still a part of her that felt like an outsider. She hadn't yet fully let go of the feeling that there was something she didn't understand about him. Why was he so willing to help? One afternoon, as she was sitting in the living room, cradling Noah in her arms, William came in with a stack of papers. He looked more serious than usual, and Emily couldn't help but notice the tension in his posture. "I've been thinking," he said, setting the papers down on the coffee table. "You've been through a lot, and I know it's hard to start over. But I think it's time you start thinking about what comes next. Not just for you, but for Noah too." Emily blinked, surprised by the sudden change in tone. She had been so focused on simply getting through each day that she hadn't really thought about what the future held. But now, looking at William's serious face, she felt the weight of the question. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice soft. William sat down across from her, his gaze focused on Noah for a moment before meeting her eyes. "You've got a fresh start, Emily. I've seen it, and I think you can make something of it. You've got the potential, but you need to take the first step. I'm not going to force you into anything, but I want you to think about what you really want. You're not stuck. You have options." Emily was silent for a long moment, processing his words. She had been so focused on survival that she hadn't really considered what she wanted out of life. Her dreams, her goals, they all seemed distant now. "I don't know," she said finally, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've been so lost in trying to make sure Noah's okay, I haven't really thought about me. What I want, it's hard to even imagine a future." William nodded, his expression softening. "That's okay," he said quietly. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. But take some time. Think about what you want to do, and know that whatever you decide, I'm here to help." There was a sincerity in his voice that touched Emily deeply. She had always believed that people with money and power were detached from the struggles of ordinary people. But William was different. He wasn't just offering help, he was offering her a chance. It was more than she had ever expected from a stranger. The next few days passed in a blur. Emily spent time reflecting on what William had said, trying to figure out what her next steps would be. She knew she needed to do something, for herself and for Noah, but the weight of her past kept holding her back. Every time she tried to think about a future, she felt overwhelmed by the uncertainty. It was hard to imagine a life beyond the struggle, but as she looked at Noah, who was now starting to smile and coo, something shifted inside her. She couldn't keep living in the past. She had to look forward. And she wanted to be a better mother for him, a role model who could show him that it was possible to rebuild, to make something out of nothing. That afternoon, as she sat with Noah in the living room, William came in, a slight smile on his face. "How are you feeling?" he asked, sitting down beside her. Emily took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in a long time. "I think I'm ready," she said, her voice steady. "I'm ready to take the next step. I want to build something for Noah, for us." William's smile widened, and for the first time, Emily saw a warmth in his eyes that went beyond just offering help. It was pride. "I knew you would," he said softly. "You've got what it takes. I'll be here, every step of the way." In that moment, Emily realized that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, she didn't feel alone. She had someone who believed in her, someone who had given her the chance to rebuild. And with that, she felt a glimmer of hope for the future. In the following weeks, Emily began to make small steps toward building a new life. With William's encouragement, she decided to pursue a career that could provide for both her and Noah, something stable, something that would give her the independence she had long desired. It wasn't easy. Emily had always dreamed of being an artist, but the idea of starting from scratch seemed daunting. Instead, she decided to use her natural skills in design to get her foot in the door in a more practical field, interior design. She had always admired the way spaces could be transformed, how a room could tell a story with the right touch. William, ever the supportive figure, helped her get in touch with people in the industry. He even offered to introduce her to a couple of local businesses that might need her services, but Emily was hesitant at first. She wasn't sure if she was ready to take that leap, but after days of thinking about it and long talks with William, she realized she had to try. As Emily began to reach out to local businesses, she found that the world was a lot more welcoming than she had imagined. Her first few projects were small, redecorating a friend's living room or helping a local cafe pick out furniture, but each job gave her more confidence. It was work she enjoyed, and with every completed project, her portfolio grew. Noah, of course, was always by her side, the one constant in her life. His smiles, his giggles, the way he looked at her with such trust and love, those moments kept her going when the road got tough. But as Emily's career began to pick up, she felt a strange sense of guilt. She had come so far, but the help she had received from William loomed in her mind. She hadn't done anything to truly repay him for his kindness, and she felt that at some point she would have to confront that. One evening, after another successful project, Emily sat down with William in the living room, a cup of tea in hand. He had been out most of the day, and now, as the evening grew quiet, the two of them sat together, like they had done many times before. "William," she began hesitantly, "I've been thinking. I don't think I've thanked you enough for everything you've done. You gave me a chance when I had nothing, and I know I haven't really paid you back." William looked up from his book, his expression warm. "Emily, you don't need to repay me. I've helped you because I believe in you. Seeing you make progress, seeing you take those steps, it's more than enough for me. You don't owe me anything." Emily frowned, feeling the weight of his words but still unsure. "But I want to do something. I want to show you how much I appreciate everything. I don't know how to explain it, but I can't just keep taking from you without giving anything back." William set his book down, his eyes serious but kind. "Emily, I didn't help you for a reward. I helped you because I could see you were someone who needed a break. I've been where you are, in a way. Life has a way of knocking you down. But sometimes, all you need is someone to help you stand back up. You've done the hard work. You're building your own future, and that's all I ever wanted for you." Emily swallowed, feeling the sincerity of his words wash over her. He wasn't asking for anything in return, yet she felt an overwhelming urge to give back. "You've shown me what kindness really is," she whispered almost to herself. "And I don't want to forget that. I want to be that kind of person for someone else." William smiled at her, his eyes softening. "And you will be, Emily. You already are." The conversation lingered in the air, but Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in months, she felt truly at peace. William's words reassured her, and she realized that, in his own way, He had already given her more than enough. The next morning, Emily woke up early to work on another design project. She had a vision for a new space, one that would not only challenge her creativity but also help her grow as a designer. As she worked, Noah crawled across the floor beside her, giggling and reaching for toys. And Emily couldn't help but smile. This was the life she had been building, step by step, brick by brick. And although there were still many challenges ahead, she knew now that she had the strength to face them. She had a purpose again, something beyond just surviving. She had a future, and that future was full of possibility. Later that day, Emily was contacted by a local business owner who had seen some of her work and wanted to hire her for a larger project. It was a huge step forward, a breakthrough that could open more doors for her career. She felt her heart race as she read the message, but this time, it wasn't fear that gripped her. It was excitement. She was on the right path. She wasn't just rebuilding her life, she was creating something new, something better. She glanced over at Noah, who was now playing contentedly with his blocks, and she knew that no matter where the road took her, she was ready. She had come so far, and this was just the beginning. As the weeks went by, Emily's life continued to take small but significant steps forward. She had found a rhythm in her new career, and the projects she worked on began to bring in more recognition. She had even started to feel more comfortable in her own skin again, the weight of her past slowly lifting. The house she had once felt like a stranger in now felt like a home. Noah was thriving, growing stronger every day, and his laughter filled the spaces where silence had once been. But despite all the progress, Emily couldn't shake the lingering question about William. She had been living under his roof for months now, benefiting from his generosity, but she didn't really know much about him. He had helped her without expecting anything in return, but Emily felt there was something more to his kindness. He had never shared much about himself, and his private nature only deepened the mystery surrounding him. One afternoon, as Emily was working on a design project in the living room, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching. William entered, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a hint of seriousness in his expression. "Emily, can we talk for a minute?" he asked, his voice steady. Emily looked up, her heart skipping a beat. "Of course. What's on your mind?" William sat down across from her, his posture a little more rigid than usual. "There's something I need to tell you," he began, his gaze dropping to his hands for a moment before meeting her eyes again. Emily's stomach tightened. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment when he would finally open up, when he would tell her why he had helped her in the first place. "I haven't been entirely honest with you," he said, his voice quieter now. "I've been avoiding this conversation because I wasn't sure how to say it, but it's time you knew the truth." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't read his expression, and her mind raced with possibilities. Was he going to tell her that his help had been some kind of business deal? Had he expected something from her all along? "What is it?" she asked softly, her voice betraying the anxiety she felt. William sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I wasn't always like this. I didn't always have everything I do now. I've been through my own struggles, Emily. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. In fact, I spent many years working multiple jobs just to get by. I've made mistakes, lost people I cared about, and sometimes I've had to do things I'm not proud of. But when I saw you that night, on the train platform, I saw something in you. A reflection of my past. A glimpse of the struggle I had once gone through." Emily listened intently, her heart pounding in her chest. William continued, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I've built a life for myself over the years, but in doing so, I've lost something important. I've isolated myself, closed myself off from the people who could have made a difference. When I met you, when I saw you holding Noah, I remembered what it was like to be at rock bottom. I remembered the feeling of needing someone to offer a hand, someone to show me that I wasn't invisible." He paused, his eyes fixed on her. "I helped you because I saw myself in you, but there's more to it. I've been alone for a long time, Emily. I've built this life, but I've never had anyone to share it with. I'm not asking you for anything, but I want you to know that you've helped me too. You've reminded me what it feels like to care for someone, to want to help without expecting anything in return." Emily sat there, stunned. She had never expected William to open up like this. She had always seen him as someone who had it all together, someone who didn't need anything from anyone. But now, hearing his story, she realized how much pain he had carried with him. It was as though the walls he had built around himself had slowly started to come down, revealing the man beneath. "I don't know what to say," Emily whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I never knew. I didn't know you had been through so much." William smiled faintly, the first time she had seen a true expression of vulnerability in him. "You don't need to say anything," he replied. "I just wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to understand that helping you wasn't just about charity, it was about something much more personal to me." Emily sat back, her mind reeling. She had always seen William as a benefactor, someone who was simply offering her a helping hand. But now she saw him in a completely different light. He wasn't just a man who had helped her out of pity or obligation. He was someone who had been through his own struggles and, in some way, had found healing by helping her. The realization hit her hard. She had come into his life at a time when he, too, needed help, even if he hadn't admitted it to himself until now. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice full of sincerity. "Thank you for trusting me with this." William nodded, his eyes soft. "You don't have to thank me. I just want you to know that I'm here for you. And I always will be, no matter what." Emily smiled, a sense of warmth filling her chest. She had come a long way since the night she had collapsed on that train platform. But it wasn't just her life that had changed. William had found something too, something he had been missing for a long time. In that moment, as they sat together, both of them reflecting on the journey they had shared, Emily realized that their paths had crossed for a reason. They had both helped each other heal, in their own way, and that was something she would never forget. As the days turned into weeks, Emily began to feel more at home in her new life. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she still hadn't fully embraced the opportunity William had given her. She had made progress in her career. Her design projects were taking off, and Noah was thriving. Still, deep down, she knew she had to find a way to give back to truly repay William for everything he had done for her. One evening, as she sat in the living room, Noah playing contentedly on the floor beside her, William entered, holding a stack of papers. Emily looked up from her work, sensing a shift in his energy. "Emily, I think it's time we talk," he said, his voice calm but serious. "There's something important that's been on my mind for a while now." Emily's heart raced. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment when William would finally ask for something in return, or perhaps share more about his own past. "What is it?" she asked, setting aside the designs she was working on. William sat down across from her, placing the papers on the table between them. He met her gaze, his eyes unusually serious. "I've been following your progress closely, Emily," he began, his voice steady. "I've watched you work hard, I've seen your growth, and I'm proud of what you've accomplished. But I need you to understand something. I didn't bring you into my home and offer you this support just for you to stand still. I want you to aim higher, to push yourself further. You've got potential beyond what you've already achieved." Emily blinked, caught off guard by the intensity of his words. She had been working hard, but she hadn't expected William to be so blunt with her. I don't know if I'm ready for more," she said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've come so far, but I still feel like there's so much I don't know. What if I fail?" William leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "Failure is part of the process, Emily, but you won't know if you can succeed if you don't try. You've come this far, but you have to keep pushing. That's the only way to truly take control of your future. You're not alone in this. I'll support you, but you have to believe in yourself." Emily's chest tightened, a mixture of fear and determination rising within her. She had come to rely on William's support, but she realized that he was right. She couldn't stay stagnant. She had to take the next step. "I understand," she said softly, her voice more certain now. "But I don't know where to start." William smiled, his expression softening. "You've already started, Emily. You've proven to yourself that you can create a life for yourself, that you can be successful. The next step is to believe that you deserve even more. You deserve to take the risks and follow your dreams." Emily sat in silence for a moment, processing his words. They felt like a challenge she wasn't sure she was ready to take. But she knew deep down that she couldn't stay where she was. She had come so far now, it was time to step into the unknown. "I'll do it," she said, her voice more resolute. "I'll push myself, take risks. I'll make sure Noah and I have the life we deserve." William nodded approvingly. "That's what I like to hear. I'm not saying it will be easy, but I believe in you." Emily felt a sense of clarity wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of the future. There would be challenges, yes, but she could face them. She wasn't alone. She had William's support, and she had her own strength. That night, after William had retired to his study, Emily sat down with Noah, looking at the future she was about to build. The road ahead might be uncertain, but it was hers to walk. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: she was ready to embrace it. She spent the following days refining her career goals, pushing herself to reach higher. She began reaching out to larger companies, seeking bigger projects and more opportunities. Emily knew it would be a long journey, but she was no longer afraid of the unknown. Every step she took was a step closer to the life she had always dreamed of. As the days turned into weeks, Emily's hard work began to pay off. She landed her first major project, a complete redesign of a local restaurant. It was a big leap, and she felt the weight of the responsibility, but it also filled her with excitement. She couldn't believe how far she had come from the woman who had once been lost on the platform with nothing but a baby in her arms. As she worked on the project, Emily thought back to that night when she had collapsed in the cold, uncertain if she could go on. Now, as she stood in the middle of a bustling restaurant, seeing her designs come to life, she realized just how much she had grown. She had taken William's advice to heart, and she was finally stepping into her own. And as she glanced at Noah, playing with his toys, she knew that this was just the beginning. The future was bright, and she was ready to meet it head-on. Emily's life had been steadily improving since she took the leap into her career. The restaurant redesign project had been a huge success, and word was spreading about her talent. She was gaining clients, building her reputation, and most importantly, she felt a growing sense of pride in what she had accomplished. But with success came its own set of challenges. As she continued to take on more projects, she started to feel the weight of the responsibilities pressing down on her. There were deadlines to meet, clients to satisfy, and her growing business was demanding more of her time and energy. Still, she pressed on, driven by the desire to build something for herself and for Noah. One evening, after a long day of meetings and site visits, Emily sat down at her desk in the quiet of the house, trying to catch up on paperwork. She had been working non-stop for weeks, and her exhaustion was starting to show. The once peaceful house now felt like a whirlwind of activity, and she was struggling to keep up. Noah had been fussy all afternoon, and Emily was feeling the strain of trying to balance her work and her role as a mother. As she sat there, surrounded by papers and design sketches, she heard a knock at the door. She was surprised it was late, and she hadn't been expecting anyone. When she opened the door, she found William standing on the other side, holding a small envelope in his hand. "Hey, I just wanted to check in on you," he said, his voice warm as always. "How are you holding up?" Emily stepped aside to let him in, grateful for the distraction. "It's been a little overwhelming," she admitted, gesturing to the mess of papers on her desk. "I'm juggling a lot right now, and it's starting to get to me." William nodded in understanding, his eyes scanning the room before settling on her. "I can tell," he said gently. "You've been working non-stop, and I'm proud of everything you've accomplished. But I also know you need to take care of yourself, too. You can't pour from an empty cup, Emily." His words struck a chord with her. She had been so focused on achieving success that she had neglected to take care of her own well-being. She had always been driven by the need to prove herself, to show that she could make it on her own. But in the process, she had forgotten the importance of balance. "You're right," she said softly, looking down at the papers scattered across her desk. "I've been so focused on everything else that I've forgotten to slow down." William took a step closer, setting the envelope down on the table. "I know it's hard, but you don't have to do everything alone. You've got people who care about you, who want to see you succeed, and that includes me." Emily looked up at him, surprised by the sincerity in his words. She had always known that William had been there for her, but hearing him say it out loud made her realize just how much he cared. He wasn't just offering her help out of obligation or charity, he genuinely wanted her to succeed, and that meant more than she could put into words. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. William smiled, his eyes soft. "You don't have to thank me, Emily. Just take a breath. You've worked hard, and you deserve a break." She nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. It was easy to get caught up in the hustle, to forget the importance of self-care when everything seemed urgent. But William's reminder was just what she needed. She had come so far, but there was still a long road ahead. The next few days were a turning point for Emily. She made a conscious effort to step back and find some balance in her life. She scheduled breaks throughout the day, made time for herself, and most importantly, spent more time with Noah. She realized that her success didn't just come from her hard work, it came from the love and support around her. And that was something she couldn't take for granted. As she focused on regaining balance, Emily also realized that she had to be honest with herself. She had been so focused on achieving her goals that she had never truly stopped to ask herself what she wanted beyond career success. What kind of life did she want to build for herself and Noah? She spent the next few days reflecting on that question, letting her thoughts and feelings settle. It was during one of these quiet moments, when she was sitting with Noah in the nursery, that she had an epiphany. She didn't need to have it all figured out. She didn't need to chase every opportunity that came her way just to prove herself. What mattered was finding fulfillment, both in her work and in her personal life. She wanted a life where she could nurture her passions, her career, and her family. With that newfound clarity, Emily made a decision. She would continue to work hard, but she would do it in a way that aligned with her values. She would take on projects that truly inspired her, projects that she felt passionate about, and she would make time for the things that mattered most: her son, her own well-being, and the people who supported her. When William came by the next day, she told him about her decision. He listened attentively, nodding as she spoke. "That sounds like a great plan, Emily," he said with a smile. "You've got a lot of potential, but I'm glad to see you're making time for what's truly important." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She had come so far, and now she was ready to continue moving forward on her own terms. As weeks passed, Emily's decision to focus on balance and self-care began to pay off. She found herself working smarter, not harder, and her new approach brought more joy into her life. The design projects continued to roll in, and her reputation as a skilled and thoughtful designer grew. She was starting to feel like she was finally in control of her future. But just when things seemed to be falling into place, a storm of unexpected challenges arrived. It started with a call from a potential client, a prominent restaurant chain looking for an interior designer to overhaul several of their locations. It was the kind of opportunity she had always dreamed of, one that could take her career to the next level. However, as Emily dove into the project, she quickly realized how high the stakes were. The restaurant chain was known for being very particular about its image, and their expectations were enormous. Emily found herself in countless meetings, making revisions to her designs, and dealing with an increasingly demanding client. As the pressure mounted, Emily felt a familiar sense of overwhelm creeping in. She had promised herself that she would never lose sight of her well-being, but with this new project, she felt like she was falling back into old habits. Late one evening, after an exhausting day of work, Emily sat at her desk, staring at her laptop screen. She had hit a wall, unable to make the final adjustments the client requested. Noah was in bed, and the house was eerily quiet. William, who had been a constant presence in her life, hadn't been around much in the past few days due to his own busy schedule. It was during these quiet moments that Emily felt the weight of her situation most acutely. She had everything she had wanted: success, independence, a growing career, but it was starting to feel like it was too much. She could feel the exhaustion in her bones, and the thought of another late night working on this project made her stomach tighten. She took a deep breath and closed her laptop, trying to push the nagging thoughts out of her mind. But no matter how hard she tried, the pressure wouldn't let up. She needed help. She needed someone to talk to. That's when she realized she had been shutting herself off from those around her. She had been so focused on proving she could handle everything on her own that she hadn't been relying on the support system she had worked so hard to build. Emily stood up, walked across the room, and picked up her phone. She hesitated for a moment before texting William. "I need to talk. Can you come by when you have a moment?" Almost immediately he replied. "Of course. I'll be there in 15 minutes. As she waited for William's arrival, Emily felt a mix of relief and vulnerability. She hadn't realized how much she had been carrying on her own until she reached out. When William arrived, he could tell immediately that something was weighing on her. "What's going on, Emily?" he asked, his voice gentle but concerned. She hesitated, looking down at her hands before meeting his eyes. I've been trying to keep up with everything work, Noah, everything. But I feel like I'm failing. I have this huge project with the restaurant chain, and it's just so much. I'm exhausted, and I don't know if I can do it all. William sat down next to her, his presence calm and steady. You're doing great, Emily. You're handling more than most people ever will. But I can see you're burning out, and that's not healthy. Emily looked at him, her eyes filled with frustration and fatigue. I don't want to let this opportunity slip away, but I can't keep pushing myself like this. I thought I was balancing everything, but now I feel like I'm losing control. William listened carefully, then placed a hand on her shoulder. It's okay to admit when things are too much. You don't have to do everything at once. Maybe it's time to step back and reassess what you really need right now. His words were a wake-up call. Emily realized that she had been pushing herself to the brink in the name of ambition. She had been so focused on proving that she could handle it all that she had forgotten to take a step back and prioritize her well-being. I think you're right, Emily said quietly, feeling the weight of her exhaustion. I've been so afraid of failing that I didn't stop to think about what I really need. William smiled, his eyes soft. You're not failing, Emily. You're human. You're doing the best you can. And sometimes, that means asking for help and taking a break when you need it. Emily let out a deep sigh, the tension in her body beginning to loosen. I've been so caught up in trying to do everything perfectly, she admitted. But I don't want to lose myself in the process. I need to find a way to balance my work and my life without feeling like I'm drowning. William nodded, his expression understanding. It's all about finding that balance. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be true to yourself and what matters most to you. Emily felt a sense of clarity wash over her. She had been pushing herself so hard to prove something, but now she realized that it was okay to take a step back and refocus. She didn't have to do it all alone. She could still pursue her dreams, but she needed to take care of herself along the way. Thank you, she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. I needed to hear that. William smiled. You don't have to thank me. I'm here for you, always. Emily smiled back, feeling the weight on her shoulders lighten. The road ahead would still be challenging, but she knew now that she didn't have to face it alone. She had people who cared about her, and that made all the difference. As the weeks passed, Emily began to implement the changes she had talked about with William. She set clearer boundaries for herself, balancing her career with her personal life. She continued to take on projects that excited her, but she made sure to pace herself, allowing time for Noah and for herself. It wasn't easy, but Emily began to feel more in control of her life. Slowly, the pressure she had been carrying started to ease. One morning, she sat down at her desk, feeling a sense of satisfaction as she reviewed her work. She had just completed a new design proposal for a boutique hotel and was about to send it to the client. As she hit send, she leaned back in her chair, taking a deep breath. She was getting the hang of this. Her career was moving forward, and she was beginning to trust that she could handle the challenges that came her way. But as the day wore on, something unexpected happened. Her phone rang, and when she answered, it was the boutique hotel client, calling with some bad news. The client had decided to go with another designer. Emily's heart sank as the words registered. She had worked so hard on that proposal, and to hear that it wasn't going to work out was a blow to her confidence. She hung up the phone, staring at the screen in front of her. It felt like a setback, a sign that maybe she wasn't as good as she thought she was. For a moment, doubt crept in, but then she stopped herself. She had faced worse challenges before, and she had come out stronger. She knew she couldn't let this one disappointment define her. Emily took a few moments to collect her thoughts, reminding herself of the progress she had made. She had come from a place of uncertainty and fear, but now she was building something real. Her dreams weren't built overnight, and setbacks were part of the journey. She picked up her phone again and called William. When he answered, she didn't waste any time getting to the point. I just got the news, she said, her voice quiet. The hotel client decided to go with someone else. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line before William spoke. I'm sorry to hear that, Emily, he said, his voice calm. But you know this doesn't define you, right? You've done incredible work, and one rejection doesn't change that. Emily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her as she listened to his reassuring words. "It just feels like such a big setback," she admitted. "I work so hard, and it feels like it doesn't matter." William's voice softened. "It matters, Emily, but this is just part of the process. Rejections are a part of life. What matters is how you move forward. You have everything you need to succeed. One setback won't stop you unless you let it." His words were like a light in the darkness. Emily took a deep breath, realizing that he was right. She had the skills, the passion, and the drive to keep going. This rejection wasn't the end of her journey. It was just a bump in the road. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadier now. "I needed to hear that." William smiled, his tone warm. "I know you're going to bounce back from this. You've got too much talent to let one rejection hold you back. Keep pushing forward, and the right opportunities will come." After they hung up, Emily sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on what William had said. He was right. She couldn't let this one setback define her. She had made it this far, and she had learned so much along the way. The road to success wasn't going to be without its bumps, but that didn't mean she couldn't keep moving forward. Later that evening, as Emily put Noah to bed, she felt a renewed sense of determination. She wasn't going to let one rejection stop her. She had a vision for her life, for her career, and she knew that setbacks were just part of the process. As she kissed Noah goodnight, she whispered to herself, "I'm not giving up." The next day, Emily picked herself up and started again. She reached out to other potential clients, tweaked her proposals, and kept moving forward. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them. With each new project, she grew stronger, more confident, and more capable. Emily learned that the key to success wasn't in avoiding failure, but in learning from it, growing through it, and continuing to push forward, no matter what. And with that mindset, she knew she could achieve everything she set her mind to. Weeks passed after Emily's conversation with William, and she felt a sense of rejuvenation. The setback with the restaurant project had been tough, but it didn't break her. Instead, it gave her the clarity to keep going and push even harder. Emily had learned that rejection wasn't the end of the road but merely a signpost to something better. She kept working tirelessly, and soon her hard work began to pay off. More clients started to come her way, and she began to build a more solid reputation in the interior design world. The work was demanding, but it no longer felt like a burden. She had found a way to balance her career with her personal life, and Noah continued to thrive. But as Emily settled into this new routine, an unexpected opportunity arose that would test her in ways she hadn't anticipated. One afternoon, while she was at home with Noah, she received an email from a well-known real estate developer. The email was brief, but the offer was anything but. The developer was looking for a lead designer for a new luxury condo project in the heart of the city, a project that would put her on the map as one of the top interior designers in the city. The opportunity was everything she had ever dreamed of: high profile, high reward, and a career-defining chance. However, as Emily read through the details, her excitement quickly turned to hesitation. The project would require a massive time commitment, with long hours and tight deadlines. It would also mean putting her personal life on hold, something she wasn't sure she could do. She thought back to her conversation with William about balance and how she had worked so hard to find it. Was she willing to sacrifice it all for the sake of career advancement? As much as she longed to prove herself and take on this challenge, Emily knew she had to make a decision that was best for her and Noah. She spent the next few days in contemplation, weighing the pros and cons of the offer. William noticed the change in her demeanor. One evening, he found her sitting on the porch, staring out at the city lights, lost in thought. He sat down beside her, offering a quiet presence that allowed her to process her feelings. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently. Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. "I got an offer today, a big one. The kind I've always dreamed of, a luxury condo project. It's a huge opportunity, but I don't know if it's the right time. It's going to require so much time and energy, and I don't want to sacrifice everything I've worked so hard to build, especially when it comes to Noah." William listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. "That sounds like a big decision, and you're right to consider the impact it'll have on your life. But I think you're stronger than you realize. You've already proven you can handle a lot. The real question is, what do you want? What feels right for you?" Emily looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. I don't know what I want anymore. I want to keep pushing forward, but I also want to be present for Noah. I don't want to lose the balance I've found. I feel like I'm constantly torn between my ambitions and my responsibilities as a mom. William smiled gently. It's okay to feel torn. What you're describing is something a lot of people face, wanting to pursue their dreams while also being there for the people they love. But you've done an incredible job so far. You've found a way to make it work, and I know you can keep finding that balance. Whatever you decide, I believe in you. Emily sat in silence, taking in his words. She realized that she had been so focused on what she might have to sacrifice that she hadn't fully acknowledged how much she had already achieved. She had found a way to be successful while still being a good mother. It wasn't easy, but she had learned how to manage both. The luxury condo project would be a huge milestone in her career, but she wasn't sure if it was worth losing the balance she had fought so hard to maintain. After some time, Emily made a decision. She would take the project, but she would do it on her own terms. She would ensure that she maintained the balance in her life, scheduling time for both her work and her family. It wouldn't be easy, but she knew that she had the strength and the support to make it work. The next day, she called the developer back and accepted the offer, setting clear boundaries from the start. She made sure to communicate her schedule and the importance of balancing work with her personal life. The developer was understanding and agreed to the terms. Emily hung up the phone, feeling a sense of empowerment. She had made the right decision, not just for her career, but for her life as a whole. As the days passed, Emily threw herself into the project with renewed energy and a newfound sense of purpose. She managed to juggle the demands of the project while also making time for Noah, ensuring that he remained her priority. And with each passing day, she found herself growing even more confident in her ability to balance the many aspects of her life. As the project came to a close, Emily stood in one of the completed condos, admiring her work. It was everything she had hoped it would be: modern, elegant, and stunning. She had done it. She had pushed herself beyond her limits and come out on top. And in the process, she had learned something important, that success wasn't just about achieving your goals, but about staying true to what mattered most. She had found her balance, and in the end, that was the greatest achievement of all. As the final touches were placed on the luxury condo project, Emily stood back, admiring her work. It had been a long, challenging journey, but now, as she looked at the completed spaces, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. This project had tested her in ways she never expected, but it had also taught her more about herself than she could have imagined. It wasn't just the design that she was proud of, it was the way she had learned to balance her career with her responsibilities as a mother. She had found a way to keep pushing herself while also staying true to her values. And that, she realized, was the true success. Her phone buzzed, breaking her moment of reflection. It was a message from William. Asterisk, I'm so proud of you. You've come so far. Asterisk. Emily smiled as she read the message, feeling a warmth in her chest. Over the past months, William had been more than just a mentor. He had been a friend, someone who believed in her, even when she doubted herself. His support had been unwavering, and she couldn't help but feel grateful for everything he had done for her. As she sat down on the couch, Noah playing contentedly on the floor beside her, Emily reflected on the journey she had taken. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, moments where she questioned whether she was capable of achieving her dreams. But with each step forward, she had built more confidence, more resilience. She realized now that the hardest part wasn't the work or the setbacks, it was learning to trust herself, to believe that she could handle whatever life threw her way. And as she looked at Noah, the one constant in her life, she knew that everything she had done had been worth it. She had created a better life for them both. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find William standing there, holding a bottle of wine and a smile on his face. I thought we could celebrate, he said, stepping inside. Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. Celebrating? What are we celebrating? William raised his eyebrows. You, Emily? You've achieved something incredible. You pushed yourself, you took risks, and you made it happen. It's time to celebrate that. Emily felt a swell of emotion in her chest. She had done it. She had taken the leap, and now, looking at the life she had built for herself and Noah, She felt a sense of fulfillment that words couldn't fully express. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice full of gratitude. "For everything. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." William smiled, setting the bottle of wine down on the counter. "You've always had it in you, Emily. You just needed to realize it." As they sat down together, sharing a quiet evening, Emily couldn't help but think about how far she had come. The road had been long and sometimes difficult, but each step had brought her closer to the person she was meant to be. She had found balance, found strength, and most importantly, found herself. In that moment, as Noah giggled from the other room, Emily knew that this was only the beginning. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, she felt ready to face whatever came her way. With her career on track, her son by her side, and the support of those she loved, she knew that anything was possible. She had built a life she was proud of, and now, with each new day, she would continue to grow, continue to reach for her dreams, and continue to be the mother, the woman, and the designer she had always wanted to be. This captivating story of a woman's transformation and the profound impact of kindness is one of the most inspiring millionaire stories you'll come across. Emily's journey from a struggling single mother to a successful interior designer showcases the power of resilience, hard work, and the importance of having the right support. Her encounter with a mysterious millionaire, who offers her a second chance at life, leads to a series of events that change her trajectory forever. In these millionaire stories, the themes of overcoming adversity and seizing opportunities are at the forefront, offering valuable lessons for anyone striving to achieve success. As Emily builds her career, she faces challenges, including rejection and the struggle to find balance between her personal life and her ambitions. But with each setback, she grows stronger, learning to trust herself and find peace in the process. These millionaire stories not only inspire with their tales of success, but also teach us that the road to achieving your dreams is never without its difficulties. By the end of Emily's journey, she has found not just professional success, but also a sense of fulfillment and happiness in her personal life, proving that anything is possible when you have the right mindset and support. This is just one example of millionaire stories that remind us that true success isn't only about wealth, but about finding balance, believing in yourself, and never giving up.